He came up to me on a bright, sunny Sunday afternoon, just as church was getting out, and he said, "Stanley Paul, how old are you now?" And I said, "Well, Mr. Helms, I'm 15. And then he said, "Stanley Paul, when you're 16, I want you to come over to the store. I want to talk to you about that. I think I have an opportunity for you. Perhaps you can work with me in the store." And that's how it all began. That's right, my first mentor, Charles Helms, a distinguished man, and he wanted to turn me into a Penney Man. And I think about that today as we read about the demise of a wonderful American retail institution, the bankruptcy of JC Penney. Some wonderful, some profound, even thoughtful lessons, and some sad memories about JC Penney. I'm Stan Houston. The program is called The Master Entrepreneur, and it begins right now. Yes, indeed. That was the goal, to turn me into a Penney Man. Now, let me give you a little background, and obviously I've already started a bit of the story. Well, I was growing up in Marshalltown, Iowa, right in the middle of the heart of central Iowa, where the farmland was good and the farmers were prosperous. And in the community of Marshalltown, it was the perfect combination of some major industries like Fisher Governor Company, the Lennox Furnace Company. A number of good businesses were there. And right in the middle of all of the agribusiness in central Iowa. And for Mr. Charles Helms to finally have the appointment as a manager of the JC Penney Company store in Marshalltown, Iowa, after a long career, was a real stepping stone. And that's what he was. And he was well respected. You see, particularly in the 50s and early 60s, in many communities, there was the Sears store, and there was the JC Penney Company store, and Montgomery Ward's. And then you really knew that those were the stores, and the managers of those stores were usually very respected business leaders in the community. And Charlie Helms, Mr. Charles Helms, was the manager, and he did what he seldom did, but he did it quite often. And that's when he found a young man that he thought could be a person who could be a Penney Man. Right off the bat, he would start to recruit them and bring them into the business and hopefully do what he loved to do. And that was to teach and mentor young men so that perhaps they would grow up and decide after college and their education to come back to the store and be a Penney Man. And then, of course, grow into the leadership positions, just as he had done. Now, that was some time ago. I remember when, in 1962, I helped Mr. Helms put up the signs that celebrated the 60th anniversary of the JC Penney Company. And he told me more stories about that. You see, Charles Helms actually knew JC Penney. He was still, though he was not running the business anymore, he still took the subway. That's right, took the subway into the JC Penney Company office on the Avenue of the Americas in New York City and went to work. That's what he did. So I was brought up in that atmosphere and in that learning situation. And when I wrote my book on mentoring, I was very careful to acknowledge the role that he played. That's right. And he made a point of putting me, once he agreed, as I did, I came in and he hired me right away, and he put me in the shoe department. And why in the shoe department? Well, he explained to me that that was a good place to learn business. You see, you just couldn't take orders. Someone could come in and say, I want that shirt there, or I want this pair of socks. That's all good. But in the shoe department, you had to talk to them. You had to find out something about them and what they wanted, and you had to fit them and make it work and perhaps even help them decide whether that was the shoe they wanted. So they were not only buying shoes, they were buying your service and your expertise and your experience. So he wanted me in the shoe department. Great wisdom there. I learned a lot. I mean a lot about selling shoes. And those skills did me well for many, many years, and I believe still do. And then one time I came in on a Monday morning in the summer because now, you see, I could work during the daytime. Otherwise, I usually had to work after school or on the shopping night. The stores were only open one night a week, the shopping night on Monday night. But I came in on a Monday morning. And Mr. Helms met me at the door and said, "Stanley, I have some news for you." And he took me back to the shoe department and said, "Mr. Hughes." Now, Mr. Hughes was Eddie Hughes. He was my boss. And I worked with him. And he says, "Unfortunately, Mr. Hughes is no longer with us anymore. And we wish him all the best. But he's no longer here with us at Penneys. And I want you to run the department this summer." I was 17. He said, "I want you to run the department this summer. I'm sure you can do it. You're in charge, and I'll be here to help you." Let me tell you, that trust and that time I remember when we did a count out. Now, he would come, and of course, he would, at the end of every day, he would ring up the cash register, and then we would talk about the sales that we had, any problems that we'd had, any successes that we had. He would ask me what shoes were selling well now, and were there any hot items. All of that good stuff that a young man needs to know about serving customers and moving product, because that was the deal. We serve people, and we move product. We make it happen. And I remember one time he then said, "Now let's see what we did on the fourth Saturday in June." And last year. And then he brought out the sales record, and we rang it up, and I saw that we were only $55 more than the fourth Saturday in June last year. And he said, "Stanley Paul, let me tell you a trick." He said, "This is what's called a mature market." I mean, shoes. So much as a commodity. And you know what? All I want from you is that every year you just be able to sell a little bit more. It's never going to be a significant amount unless we have some big event that we hadn't planned on or something that we have to do. But in this mature market, in a commodity market, you have to understand that if you show me, the term he said was gain, if we have a gain every year, you're doing a good job. And he said, we had a better June this summer than we did last summer. Thank you. Congratulations. Now please, put yourself back into a young 17-year-old boy who's just a boy, who's dealing with self-confidence issues, dealing with the fact that he has sometimes a case of acne that makes him shy, and that just adds to his natural, real shyness. All of that is happening because the man who actually knew JC Penney himself The man who owned and ran the whole store, I thought, taught him, and he was teaching me. It made me feel very, very special. And I went off at the end of the summer. I went off to St. Paul to go to college, and I thought I had a lot of money saved. Well, and turned out that my money barely lasted me through the first semester, and I was broke. What am I going to do now? Well, I thought maybe I could go to the penny store, because you know what? Just up the street from the college where I went, there was a new penny store which had just opened next to a brand new store, a new discount store, first one in America, called Target. That's right. The very first Target store was right next to the penny store. Boy, this dates me, doesn't it? Well, guess what? I went up on a Saturday morning to the penny store in St. Paul at the mall, and I asked, where do you apply for a job? And they said, oh, you go down there. And I went down there. And I went down and went to the receptionist's office, and I said to the lady, I was I'm very shy. I still am. I'm introverted off the map. Hi, my name is Stan, and I'd like to apply for a job. And she said, okay, why don't you come in here and I'll give you an application. And then she said to me, have you ever had any experience in a store? And I said, well, I worked at the JC Penney Company store in Marshalltown, Iowa. She said, oh, you did? She said, well, let me tell Mr. Mummert, the manager. And she went around, and all of a sudden, this very nice man comes running out and says, hi, my name is Bob Mummert, and I'm the manager here. You work at the JC Penney store in Marshalltown, Iowa? And I said, yes, I did. He said, you worked for Charlie Helms? I said, yeah, he's my boss, and he really taught me a lot. And he took away the application blank and said, Mr. Houston, when can you start? When can you start? And I said, well, anytime. He went and picked up the phone, called upstairs somewhere, then said, how about 1 hour from now? We need some work in the shoe department now. Well, thank you for taking 10 minutes to listen to my story. But if you'll give me just a few more minutes, maybe I can draw some of the lessons and some of the sadness that goes through my heart and spirit when, of course, I read yesterday that the JC Penney Company has gone bankrupt. I'm Stan Houston. These are my stories. And hopefully all of this is something that we can all learn from as we seek to be masters, master entrepreneurs at business, at life, and in living out what we need to have, the spirit force in these difficult times.
What's up, Doc?
Well, of course, I never really did become a penny man, though even after becoming a teacher, there was one summer where I needed a little extra money, and I went back to a penny store, and they hired me right away. Then, because of that, my wife was looking for work, and I said, why don't you go to the Penneys office? And she went to the Penneys office, and tell you a few things about the story. She was hired because her husband had worked for Penneys. Now, a part of the story which also dates it is you have to remember that even as we went through that time, there were difficulties. Penneys had to make a lot of decisions. Should Penneys have credit cards? Because before that, Penneys had as their motto, JC Penney, cash is our middle name. And now they're going to give credit? That was a big decision to make. And then there was always the question, it was just beginning to happen. Should the store be open on Sunday? And I remember talking later on to Mr. Penney about that. Mr. Penney, of course, Mr. Helms. He was now retired, and I'd gone back home. And he simply said this, is if Penneys ever opens on Sunday, Mr. Penney will make him take his name off the store. And by the way, it was not until Mr. Penney passed on that JC Penney Company ever was open on a Sunday. My wife worked for the Penney Company for some time. In fact, she, and again this dates us, because she couldn't be a Penney Man, because obviously they meant that. The only people who could have leadership positions at that time were men. And my wife Karen was selected as one of the first woman candidates to be in a management position. And she thought about that. She was very, very good at it and very highly respected. But at that time, we had made the decision that we were going to change our lives and go off as international broadcast missionaries with Trans World Radio. And so I resigned from my teaching position, and she resigned from my Penney position. And we've always been fans of JC Penney. So it was with deep sadness that we saw it decline. And interestingly enough, one of the attempts to revive the store is when they hired the man who actually helped make the Apple stores go. But his Apple store idea, unfortunately, didn't go with JC Penney, and the decline continued. And of course, now all of the retail stores, thanks to the Internet, are in trouble. And now, of course, with the Internet and the COVID, JCPenney Company has declared bankruptcy. It was a good run. It was a good store. It was a good place. It was many, many, many good people. Started in 1902. And in 2020, they are dying out. All of life, as the COVID thing has reminded us, all of life is a contingency. And like life in business, nothing lasts forever. And we just simply ask the question, well, how do you want to be remembered? And my memories of what I learned and what I experienced and what I gained from the men and women of JCPenney were beyond measure. God bless the memory of all those who worked hard, the Penney men and women, and the ones who made a difference in my life. I would love for you to be on this program and share similar stories. That's what this program is all about. So that's my story of how mentoring and good men and women and how working in the marketplace made a mark in my life. And I'd love to hear from you. Stories of how God used people, how good people used what they had to succeed in the marketplace, and most importantly, how they could give hope and well-being and direction to the young men and women who came after. I was mentored by one of the best. I was mentored by JC Penney. I'm Stan Houston. Please reach out to me at stanhouston@gmail.com, stanhouston@gmail.com. Best and blessings. More to come on The Master Entrepreneur.